harder, and in a way we will have to spread the news about it in all the corners of Rajasthan, bringing more and more literarians and research scholars and teachers from schools, colleges, and higher education institutes. Now, I would not take much time, and I would hand it over to Hasina ma'am. Hasina ma'am is the event coordinator of today's session. So let me introduce her to each and everybody present here. Hasina ma'am, who is working as assistant professor in Vivekanand Global University, Jaipur. She has been associated with Toastmasters International, USA for past 9 years, where she not only monitored students but also worked as an area director for Rajasthan. Before I hand over to Hasina ma'am, I would like to recite some lines for her that we all are working together to make this iSPELL Rajasthan Forum reach in each and every corner. So that's what I would like to say here, that please spread the news about Rajasthan Forum everywhere. We all have now Google Forms and link to share, and channel, we know everybody, Facebook link we have, everyone has now. So please spread a word about iSPELL Rajasthan Forum and iSPELL India everywhere. Now I would like to hand over this to Hasina ma'am to proceed further.
Good evening, all, and thank you so much, Shalini ma'am, for the nice introduction. It's such a lovely evening since we all iSPELlians, especially from Rajasthan Forum, are here, and zeal could simply be seen with the number of people who are, increasing here. So it's nice to see many of the intellectuals here. So I'll start this wonderful evening with a small hope. All of us do not have equal talents, but all of us have an equal opportunity to develop them. So Hasina Kabir, I really feel privileged to extend gracious welcome to the galaxy of intellectuals. I'd like to start our event by acknowledging the presence of our eminent dignitaries who are all present here today. I would like to welcome today's keynote speaker, Dr. Govind Saraswat, who is an assistant professor in Government College, Digar, Ajmer, University of Rajasthan. He's the he's the resource person of today's event. He's in seminar, and then we have another wonderful personality, that is the chairperson, Mrs. Kamaljeet Yadav ma'am, who is a principal in both school Jaipur. I think Rajasthan Forum welcomes you all for the e-seminar that is on hope, history, and literature. So let us all learn and hear from the intellectuals who are present here today. So, as said by Christopher Reeve, once you choose hope, everything is possible. So, talking about hope, the entire coronavirus pandemic reminds us of a lot much of about hope and solidarity. So, without any delay, I would like to introduce today's moderator, who is Dr. Vipula Mathur. She is an associate professor in State Institute of Hotel Management, Jodhpur. She is a B.Ed and a PhD with the eminent teaching experience of 14 years. She has been associated with various degree and engineering colleges from Jodhpur and Jaipur. She has been a counselor. She has been a soft skill trainer, and also a mentor. She has worked as a soft skill trainer at various institutes in Jodhpur, in association with Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai as well. And she had been panelized in research committee of school education in the Department of Government of Rajasthan. So the stage is all yours, Vipula ma'am. As the moderator, ma'am will be introducing Govind Saraswat sir and further on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hasina ma'am. First of all, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hasina ma'am. Thank you for the kind and warm introduction. A very good evening to all.
As we have gathered here in our monthly seminar with the theme of hope, history, and literature, let's begin the auspicious event. Today, we are honored to have very esteemed and scholarly academicians amidst us. Although the welcome part has been initiated by Shagini ma'am and Hasina ma'am, still once again on the behalf of iSPELL family and Rajasthan Forum, I extend a very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Govind Saraswat, Assistant Professor, Government College, Degana, Ajmer University, and our chairperson, respected Mrs. Kamaljeet Yadav, Principal Sobodh School, Rambagh, Jaipur, and all members of iSPELL Forum. As we all know, iSPELL is an Indian society for the promotion of English language and literature, popularly known by the acronym iSPELL, was founded by the like-minded fraternity of English with to facilitate to elevate the taste and bliss in the field of English literature. iSpell organizes events every month to share and impart expertise of renowned academicians and its members to the fraternity and the stakeholders. iSpell believes that the need of the hour is to blend the trends and mend the minds, and one can improve and elevate his or her abilities once opportunities are made available. So, in today's session, we have a very erudite and accomplished resource person with us, respected Dr. Govind Saraswat. I would like to share Sir's brief introduction. Sir has obtained the degree of doctorate in 2010 on Anger and Hope in a few selected works of James Baldwin in Afro-American literature. He acquired 7th position in whole Rajasthan in RPSC College Lecturer Exam 2014. As a head of the department, he was also associated with Jain Vishwa Bharati Institute, a deemed university, Ladmo, Rajasthan. He also has been the member of Academic Council Research Board of Studies there. In total, Sir has more than 14 years of teaching experience, including 6 years at post-graduation level. To his credit, he has published 13 research papers in UGC listed and peer-reviewed journals and participated in more than 30 national and international conferences. He has chaired many sessions. Also, he has organized several UGC-sponsored national seminars and workshops. Sir has been gifted with lots of talent, creativity, and imaginative power as well. He has penned down numerous poems and articles in English and Hindi. Currently, he is designated as Assistant Professor, Government College, Degana, Ajmer University, Rajasthan. So, Sir is going to share with us a discourse on hope with reference to history and literature. History and literature are closely associated with each other. Literature reports and represents history. The two are therefore intertwined with one another. History poses itself as a fact, while literature is taken to be an artistic form. Hope is closely related to desire, faith, and possibility. The theme of hope directly addresses one of the foremost characteristics of human experiences, anxiety about the uncertainty of the future. Many literary works have plot even spurred on by characters that pursue something they want. I would like to quote some lines by Martin Luther King. Hope is the only bee that makes honey without flowers. A little more persistence, a little more effort, and what seemed hopeless failures may turn to glorious success. We must accept finite disappointment but never lose infinite hope. So now, without taking much time, I would invite Govind sir to address us, please. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vipula Mathur, for the kind introduction. Uh, I extend my sincere thanks to Professor G. Shyam, founder and General Secretary of iSPELL Society, Professor Anupama Vora, President, Professor Rajul Bhargava, Patron, Mrs. Kamaljit Yadav, Chairperson of today's program, Dr. Shalini Yadav, Convener, and Mrs. Hasina Kabir, Ms. Hasina Kabir, Event Coordinator. All the members of iSPELL Society of Rajasthan Forum and other states. I'm really excited and feel privileged in thus having been invited by iSPELL Society to share my views here. Having said that, let's begin with a topic that is hope, history, and literature. Members, today we are here to talk about hope. It is a tricky word. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it keeps the possibility alive. is not just a word, it's not just a simple word, it gives meaning to life. Hope is necessary because life is not always pleasing, as someone has rightly said that life is a pleasing pain. And Thomas Hardy has also voiced the same thing that life is a general drama of pain in which happiness is an occasional episode. So we need to be strong, we need to be persistent against the obstacles of our life. Hope can't be defined and felt unless we know how hard the situation had been, which demanded great strength on our part. Hope can't be measured alone, it is born out of despair. So, using the theory of structuralism, I will try to discuss this most positive word in its historical and literary context. And in the course of discussion, these contexts may also overlap since every literary work has its own historical background. Why did I mention structuralism? It has its roots in two concepts of this theoretical school. The first concept is that things don't have their meaning in isolation, which is the basic principle of structuralism. The second one is that meanings are relational. Ferdinand de Saussure, he suggested that we have some relational weights. But I have restricted here myself to use only the concept of binary opposites, which denotes that meaning of any word or thing will become more coherent if we try to understand its opposite word or thing. Here, the binary opposite of hope is despair, and historical and literary context will provide the necessary ground on which the comprehensive meaning of hope can be measured. We will dive deep into some challenging and despairing conditions, both in history and literature, to see what this concept of hope can do for us and why do we need to be hopeful. History is a treasure house of various sort of examples. And keeping in line with the topic of discussion today, we will first discuss a few historical examples related to the lives and struggle of Afro-Americans in the United States of America. The factual analysis of these historical events found place in the works of literature both in realistic and fictitious way. Beginning with the transatlantic slave trade, the sufferings of the Afro-Americans were beyond any. James Oliver Horton, in his book, shows us that that book, the entitled "Hard Road to Freedom." He says that the passage from the west coast of Africa to America was one of the most agonizing and dangerous parts of the enslavement process for the Africans. Moments of the Middle Passage were so unbearable that many of us threw themselves off the slave ships into the ocean, preferring to be devoured by the cruel sharks rather than to lead such a life. So their hardship started from the very day the first slave ship uh, reached the shore of Africa. Afro Americans were to cruel white master, were separated from their family, and were robbed of their identity too. Fear, lash, toil, harsh word circumscribed their life every day. So in total, we can say uh, black experience is all uh, made up of various things, and they had to undergo a lot of difficulties from slavery to uh, 21st century. So the story of Afro Americans is centuries long. After the days of American Revolution and the Civil War, so these two incidents brought some hope to the lives of Afro Americans, the hope of freedom. But their expectations were shattered, though not for the first time. They were barred from the mainstream society and were forced to the margins of society. There had been difficult moments before, and there would be difficult moments in the future. But these years were one of the deepest pits of the black ordeal. Here it was Frederick Douglass. If Frederick Douglass was a slave, and it was he who raised their hopes by emphasizing the spirit of struggle. He used to say that if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet advocate agitation are people who want crops without blowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. So, I would like to discuss the lives of Afro Americans in that way that even though they faced many difficulties for centuries and their expectations were shattered many a time and their daily life was full of misery, pain, and even though they were angry with the white people because they were responsible for their such a wretched life. They were angry, but anger cannot bring a permanent solution to the problem in which they were. Many a time, their anger came to the fore, and some at other times there were other people like W. B. Du Bois and Ralph Ellison, James Baldwin, Martin Luther King Jr., who devised a different strategy to deal with this problem. Earlier, it was slavery, and then after the Civil War, when the black people felt that now they will get freedom, and sorry, uh, but every time, whatever they expected or whatever they hoped for were shattered. Like after the American Revolution or the Civil War, there were enactments of plague courts and racially discriminated laws known as Jim Crow laws that enforced inequality and demanded greater social segregation. They were segregated from the mainstream society. They were considered as inferior, and their identity was diluted. They were, you can say that Black Americans were feeling a kind of double consciousness, as W. E. Du Bois suggested in his book, The Souls of the Black Folk. Now, the attitude of the whites vindictive Southerners, because slavery was abolished in the northern states, but southern states they wanted slavery to remain because they needed cheap labor in the tobacco and cotton kingdom. So they enacted these discriminatory laws, and a reign of terror then broke out. The dead bodies of the murdered Negroes were found on and near the highways. Gruesome reports came from hospitals, reports of colored men and women whose ears had been cut off, whose skulls had been broken by blows, whose bodies had been slashed by knives or lacerated by scourges. Uh, they they had to face that kind of violence, and white people at that time they were not that much. sympathetic towards them. They did not want to share America with black Americans, although uh, it was white Americans who brought all these people to America because they needed them. They needed them for their own work, and they did not want to share America with them. That is why there was a wave of the wave both of integration and separation going on there. Many of the people they were hopeful that they will be integrated in the mainstream society because why they were thinking of assimilation because they knew very well that after 200 or 300 years it is difficult to go back to Africa because they do not know their roots. Alex Haley has written a beautiful book entitled Roots, in which he posed the problem that after I reached that place from where my forefathers belonged, I could not understand even a single word they were speaking. So they were half Americans and half Africans. Now, America does not want to integrate them, and they cannot go back to Africa. So they were rocking like a pendulum between hope and anger. Angry because white America neglected, neglected them completely and did not give them their right place. The discrimination and the segregation was going on. And after the Civil War, uh, public parks, hospitals, movie theaters, drinking fountains, swimming pools, phone booths, restaurants, and waiting rooms, they were segregated on the basis of color. Now, it will it very difficult to deal with such discrimination, such type of discrimination, because you feel insulted, jilted, and when your human existence is neglected. I am here reminded of a beautiful example, uh, novel that is the Ralph Ellison titled England. He said, I am an invisible man. He is not literally invisible, but he refused to see him as a being. That is why he says that I am an invisible man. So, so we surmise that what kind of existence they were leading in America. The racial atmosphere of the 20th century was becoming more and more heated for America. Social unrest prevailed not only in the South, throughout America. It was only the South which denied the civil rights to blacks, but now the whole of America joined hands with the South. Lynching became common. Ku Klux Klan once again came to life. The attitude of the white people was surprisingly cruel and sadistic. The lynching of Mary Turner in 1918 was undoubtedly one of the cruelest and barbaric acts ever committed in a civilized society. When I was doing my research at that time, when I came across this example, I felt that how can a human being treat the other human being in such a way? So she was pregnant. This lady, she was Mary Turner. She was pregnant. People were so bereft of pity that they hung her to a tree and doused her with gasoline and motor oil and then burned her alive. Their barbarous, their barbarism uh, went even further when a white man ripped her abdomen open with a knife and her unborn child was stoned to death. This is just an example. I am quoting such examples only to show or to denote that life is full of struggles. There are many people in this world. they may belong to different communities. They may be facing this kind of discriminatory behavior due to their color, due to their religion, due to their gender. We can say these are the subaltern people, and people those who are in power, they want to keep them under their thumb. But if you keep on struggling with a positive attitude, if you keep the hope chains alive, then nothing is impossible. And if such kind of violence was going on naturally, the mood of society was burning with anger in America. I agree with a renowned author, Robert E. Vaughan, when he says that no human personality can escape the effects of this type of prolonged human rejection. The victim of this cruelty will lose, perhaps forever, his normal capacity of love. It happens. Your emotions get tried if every time your expectations are centered in this way. Anger, violence, revenge, or surrender can never bring any permanent solution. Any ordinary human being will certainly follow one or the uh, other above mentioned options. But those who really want to bring change and achieve a permanent solution will go for something impossible. Now, the word impossible is something that people are so fearful. People are so fearful that they do not venture to attempt something which is new, which they feel that impossible, because they do not want to. They, they they do not want to try. They deem that it is not possible for them, and before even before attempting, they they accept their defeat. Here I want to quote a Hindi idiom that हारना बुरी बात नहीं है, but हार मान लेना बुरी बात है. So the word impossible uh, is a bit challenging, but uh, James Baldwin, um, and I have done my research on James Baldwin, and James Baldwin was one among those who were hopeful. And James Baldwin once said that I know that what I'm asking is impossible, but human history in general testifies to nothing less than the perpetual achievement of the impossible. So we have a lot of examples in our human history which can motivate us, which can inspire us, and make us understand that we must never surrender in front of our difficulties. We have to face all the challenges. As James Gordon also used to say, that fears must be faced. And the more you run away from your fears, the more they will chase you. So better it would be to face the fears and bring about that change you want that to be. And Baldwin goes beyond anger and violence. Talk about struggle and hope. He used to say it demands great spiritual resilience not to hate the hater whose feet is on your neck. And even miracle of perception and charity not to teach your child to hate. So here, James Baldwin is quite near to the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi also. Because Mahatma Gandhi also voiced the same kind of thing. And if you want to bring a change, then you must, first of all, you must have a positive attitude. And you need not be always violent, aggressive, because violence, aggression, hatred, all these things are negative. And the kind of change which we win by using these elements or these things, it is not permanent. If we want a permanent solution, so we need first of all to follow those ways which are difficult first of all, but they may be they may be harbinger of the real change. Like Mahatma Gandhi, he has suggested the way of Satya, Ahimsa, Satyagraha, even non-violence, but he never advocated violence. And once we come across an example of Chora Chori Kand, at that time he called off his strike or his andolan, we can say. But many of us may think that what James Baldwin or Mahatma Gandhi has done is not applicable at present, but it is not so. How can one react without anger under such circumstances is really questionable, or really a thing that can be pondered over. Baldwin too was angry in his life in the very beginning when he was not that much mature. When he wrote, first of all, Who Carried on the Mountain and other essays like a book of a storybook to like previous condition. He was not that much mature, but once he started feeling his special position in America, his power of writing that his power of writing got matured, and then he used a kind of strategy in which he used to use such words like we, they, without writing like I and because I become subjective and I will make him a representative of Black Americans, but he does not want to write from that perspective of a Black American. He wants to write from the perspective of an American because he was also a native son of America. That is why one of the title of his books is Notes of a Native Son. And after that, when he wrote that Notes of a Native Son, uh, he he got disappointed because the kind of request he projected through his work Notes of a Native Son was neglected. People did not pay any heed to his request or his suggestion. That is why the next book which he wrote is Nobody Knows My Name. Even though he was a native son of America, nobody knew his name. That was his pain. That was his disappointment. That America has neglected its own, a native son who is very much eager, very much concerned about a healthy society, a kind of, you can say, healthy relationship between the black and white Americans. Because yeah, he knows very well that in the chain of action and reaction, all go down into the pit together, and we cannot afford that. So he became hopeful, and it is not all of a sudden that he became hopeful. कहते हैं ना कि अकल जो होती है बादाम खाने से नहीं आती, ठोकरें खाने से आती है. सो लाइफ में उसने भी ठोकर खाई थी. तो मैं उसके बारे में बता देता हूँ. There was an incident. Baldwin was very angry and violent in his nature in the beginning, but there was an incident which changed his thoughts completely. Uh, as I have suggested, as I've told you, that there was discrimination on the basis of color. So the color line was there between blacks and white people, and white people tried every possible mean to keep the black people separate from uh, everything which they enjoyed, like restaurants, movie theater, waiting rooms, even buses. So Baldwin was angry that why such kind of treatment has been done to black people. So deliberately one day he entered a fashionable restaurant where it was an all white restaurant. So when he sat there waiting to be served, a white waitress came over and he whispered something in his ears. She announced that we don't serve Negroes here. Baldwin became very furious. This made Baldwin wrote his experience like this made me colder and murderous than ever. I felt I had to do something with my hands. I wanted her to come close enough for me to get her neck between my hands. I realized that she would never come closer and that I would have to strike from a distance. There was nothing on the table but an ordinary water mug half full of water. So I picked it up and hurled it with all my strength at her. That was his reaction, a violent reaction full of anger. But see the result. With the shattering voice of the mirror was stuck and the water mug. Okay. So his trance was broken with the shattering voice of the mirror behind, and he felt what he had done. But now it was too late to realize. He had to run to save himself from a murderous white mob. His friend helped him run by misdirecting the chasing crowd. This incident was thought provoking, and he sat contemplating to get over two facts. He mentioned clearly that the two facts, both equally difficult for the imagination to grasp. One was that I could have been murdered, but the other was that I had been ready to commit murder. I saw nothing very clear, but I did this. It was like an hyperbole, but I did see that my danger, and not from anything other people might do, but from the hatred which I carried in my own heart. So this was the life-changing moment for James Baldwin, and he realized that anger is a waste of time, and anger is self-destructive. So first of all, we need to control our anger if we want to get something, if we want to do something, and bring that change which we expect. Then we have Martin Luther King Jr. Uh, and it has been rightly suggested that if James Baldwin is the intellectual voice of civil rights movement, then Martin Luther King Jr. is the political voice of civil rights movement. And that civil rights movement is all about to get equal position, equal right. It was an attempt to end segregation because buses were segregated, and it was first of all Rosa Parks who denied to give her seat to a white man. She was very tired one day when she was returning from her office, and she was sitting in front, and she was not supposed to sit in the front because it was not she was not allowed being a black person. So she was much tired, and a white man came and ordered her to leave that seat. So she refused, and you can say that in the same manner, when Mahatma Gandhi he was hurled off that train, in the same manner she was made to leave that bus, and there are many more examples where uh, people like Rosa Parks parks, they they show that no, it is and now it is time that they will protest and they will not accept this injustice as their fate or destiny. They will change it to a way that that can be even non-violent but impressive. With Mahatma Gandhi, he also addressed. He wrote something to Martin Luther King Jr. and suggesting that it is not shame in being a slave. It is shame is there in being a slave honor. You need not feel low. Martin Luther King Jr. was the political voice of civil rights movement who existed peaceful struggle against injustice and segregation. There was despair around, but he talked about love, he talked about hope and his dream. He is famous for his I Have a Dream speech. He believed that. I would like to quote a few lines from his speech. He said that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of the former slaves and the sons of the former slaveholders will be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. This is our hope. This is again an example that if you struggle, if you uh, keep that positive attitude and are persistent in your efforts, you will certainly bring a change. Now we can take up the example of any person or community who had to face challenging situation in life. Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, they are some of the great names. But let us talk about those few ordinary people who never surrendered and taught us not to quit. But before that, I would like to recite a poem entitled Don't Quit. It is written by an anonymous author, and I acknowledge the source of this poem. It is from www.thesilverpen.com. This poem is like when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you are trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't quit. Life is strange with its twist and turn, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a fellow turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a fair and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup, and he learned too late when night came down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure, turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt, and you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight you are when you are hardest hit. It is when things seems worst that you must not quit. It is a beautiful poem that that motivates us, inspires us not to quit. Now, after this poem, I would like to quote some examples from our life. Uh, First of all, I would like to talk about Milkha Singh. He is is an example of struggle and hope in our times. He was a victim of India-Pak partition, who proved that your difficulties can't defeat you. Success is only delayed failure, as Pranam Green, I think he has suggested this thing. So, uh, I would like to say that the final result can't define your worth. And the final result tells a different story. What matters really is your efforts. When you feel low, ask yourself what Robert Browning has written in, I think the poem is The Last Night Together, where he wrote that, "Will I alone in words and deeds, while all men strive and who succeeds?" It is a spirit defense of failure. And I think recently there was a movie also in Bollywood. There also they celebrated even their defeat, because what matters is your efforts, not the final result. And then next you should prepare yourself with the spirit that I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last. So many people they feel that why me? It is for them that you must never feel in this way. Then we have a great example of an ordinary person who became extraordinary in his life because he did something great. And that man is Dashat Manji, the mountain man. And it kind of struggles because he wanted to do something possible. People laughing at his approach started with the thought to break two of the pahad because वो कहता था उसमें बहुत लंबी दंगल चलेगी तो वहाँ because it was a language. I'm reminded of an example where a report interviewed him that interviewer he also want to start my own newspaper, but it is a difficult task. So when the reporter said that it is a difficult task, Dasrat Manji instantly replied, "Pahar thode se bhi it is not that much difficult. I am doing this, and don't make any excuse." And again, I would like to quote an Indian movie, Ek Prem Katha. That movie is based on India partition and the horrors of partition. I earlier I thought of showing some images, but I feel that there is no need of any objective correlative in this respect, because we all can have those dark and dismal pictures when we think about India partition. The lead female character that was played by I think Amisha Patel. She tries to commit suicide because she came to know that her family was brutally murdered, and she lost the hope of life. That's why she tries to commit suicide. But Sardar Tara Singh, he saves her and then gives her a good thrashing. उसने कहा कि मर जाने दो मुझे. She was screaming like anything, and at that time Sardar Tara Singh told her a very good thing. जिंदगी कितनी बेरहम क्यों ना हो मैडम जी, जीना तो पड़ता है. It is all about the spirit of life. We must never surrender. जिंदगी बेरहम होती है. That's why in the very beginning I I suggested that life is a pleasing pain. With the pain we have to get the pleasure. There is no other option. And then we have Santiago, the character of Santiago in Old Man the Sea, written by Ernest Hemingway. And this is one of my favorite novels. And when I was about to start my research, I met Professor Sudhi Rajiv, She's my research guide, and I'm fortunate enough that she's my research guide. And when I was there to start my PhD, see back in front of me there is an almirah, and pick any book from there. And I opened the almirah and took out the book Old Man the Sea, and she told me that write anything on this book and come after 7 days. So when I go through the pages of that book, it was really inspiring that even an old man, uh, even an old man can एक कहावत है before I talk about the old man Santiago is a Hindi book. जल में रहकर मगर से गया, but समुद्र में रहकर साथ में that is more dangerous. He fought a fleet of stuff. There are many. Santiago Captain Merlin, it was returning shore, but the blood, the drops, the blood drops, they attracted the sharks, and then they came, and then again there was a struggle between Santiago and the sharks. When he reached to the shore, there was nothing but just the skeleton of that Merlin. But I would like to ask one thing. Although he could not save his catch, but did he really fail? His efforts were so great that his efforts affirm that Santiago is a victor and he is in no way a loser. There is a the line that I love most from that novel is, "But man is not made for defeat. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated." Martin Luther King Jr. also voiced the same thing, that he said that we must accept finite disappointments, but never lose finite hope. There is a Bollywood song also. It is, I think, from 1942, a love story. दिल ना उम्मीद तो नहीं ना नाकाम की तो है लंबी है गम की शाम मगर शाम की तो है. B.B. Shelley has also uh, wrote a great ode for the West when the last line of that ode is similar to this song when he writes, "If winter comes, can spring be far behind?" The struggle is necessary. Fears must be faced. We know, but everything that is faced can be changed. But nothing can be changed until it is faced. So first of all, we must face what is difficult. And before I conclude, I would like to recite one of my poems that I wrote during COVID. Was we were face to face with a deadly virus. There was a kind of atmosphere. It is full of depression, kind of monotonous life was going on when we were restricted within the four walls of our house or homes. So the poem is in Hindi. आंधियों का दौर आजकल कुछ ज्यादा ही शोर कर रहा है. बारिश की खुशबू और उसके बयार की ठंडक न जाने कहाँ ठहर गई है. उन हवा के झोंकों का इंतजार करते करते लू के थपेड़ों के सामने खड़े होने की हिम्मत पाई है. देखता हूँ मैं, बादल बनते रहते हैं, षष्ठी में सजन की आस जगती है. पर जब चाहिए वो बरखा भी कब कब बरसी है. सच है, जिनका इंतजार होता है सदैव देर ही करते हैं. खैर, जब धरती पुत्र पुनः खड़ा हो जाता है सामने अपनी विषम परिस्थितियों के, है उसे गढ़ नव जीवन का पुनः अंकुरण करना. तोड़ने ही होंगे जान बाधाओं के. तो फिर काहे की शिकायतें और क्या घबराना. शुरू कर तेरा सफर तेरी विरुद्ध तेरी रुकावटों के. उलझने होंगी, कठिनाई होगी और होंगी आजमाइशें. ये मानुष तो बस खड़े रहना, ढल जाएंगी तेरे सामने. रख विश्वास कि है सामर्थ्य. आत्मसमर्पण ही स्वप्न है. तेरे कर्म की नाव का संघर्ष ही तेरा एकमात्र धर्म है. रुकना तुझे है नहीं, थकना अभी यहाँ गैर जरूरी है. लक्ष्य का इतना छोटा सा था जो निगाहों से ओझल है। देख मंजिल की बाधाओं से ही रोशन है वो गलियारे जिनसे होकर तुझे गुजरना है। इन बाधाओं से डरना क्या, तय कर वो कसौटी जिस पर तुझे खरा उतरना है। कदम बढ़ा और छू उन क्षितिज की सीमाओं को जो आगे बढ़ती रहती है, पर तेरे मनुष्य होने का प्रमाण भी वही है। This is just my attempt when I try to write something and get the inspiration. So I started my discussion with using the concept of binary opposition. When we are in despair, when we are feeling low, it is the same time that we must charge ourselves. It is the time when we show कि हम किस मिट्टी के बने. We must not surrender. So before I conclude, I would like to tell you that King Junior was assassinated because I was talking about Black Americans. So the hope of change died once again when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. He had a dream, but white Americans rang down the curtain on his dream, and despair once again prevailed. One reporter at that time asked James Baldwin, "Are you still hopeful after so many years, almost 40 or 45 years? Are you still hopeful?" What James Baldwin replies, "We all must remember," James Baldwin said, "hope is invented every day." So that was the answer, and we must keep this philosophy of hope alive in our hearts because if we want to bring change, we must have that kind of positive attitude and we must have that kind of man tarika जो इन लीडर्स ने अपनाया जिसकी वजह से एक परमानेंट चेंज जो है राइट and after that I think Barack Obama, he was elected the first black president of United States of America, and we can see that uh, the race relations improved a lot. And if a black person can become the first person of America, the president of America, it means there is anything possible. Now, although we come across few examples like if that person was he was killed, these days we came across this example, but these are some of the few examples, and we must neglect and focus on those which are the emblem of hope and change. Thank you.
Viplava, please unmute yourself. Is it my voice is audible now, ma'am?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you so much, sir. It was truly a very, very motivational and inspiring indeed. And especially the illustrations you shared from history and literature were really insightful. The examples you shared of Frederick Douglass and the wretched life of slaves, of the black and white people, we can imagine their humiliation, their discrimination, what they have went through, and we know the life is full of struggles, of course. But if we keep the hope alive, nothing is impossible. We need to keep perseverance. We should never surrender. We should face the fears. We cannot be always violent or aggressive. As you quoted the principles of Mahatma Gandhi, even I truly agree with them that they are actually relevant in our lives. Though we may feel difficult to follow them, but they can really bring peace to our lives. And of course, example of Santiago that teaches us not to be defeated even all the hardships. And especially, sir, the poem you shared, which you yourself you have jotted down, you have written the poem, that was so motivational and it renders your deep profoundness and vision. It pervades us with courage and strength to face the challenges and hardships, even in COVID times, not only in COVID times, but in every sphere of life. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. Uh, Now the forum is open for questionnaire round. If anyone having a query can put forth, please. Uh, are there any questions in the chat box, Hasina ma'am?
I have already Vipula ma'am. I have already shared,
Hmm.
and
Share any quick.
so far I don't think just we are all praising that it was a wonderful session,
Yeah.
and it definitely was.
Okay. All right. Everyone is contented, sir. Thank you once again for your deep, knowledgeable discourse with us, and by which we all have been greatly benefited.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Now, in continuation of array, I request our chairperson, Mrs. Kamaljeet Yadav ma'am, Principal Subodh Public School, Jaipur, to address us, please. And before that, I would like to share a brief bio note of ma'am. Though ma'am needs no introduction, she is a dynamic and versatile personality. Currently, ma'am is working as a principal Subodh Public School, Rambagh, Jaipur. She is having an experience of 34 years in teaching. She has been a resource person in CBSE board. She has recorded more than 145 stories on YouTube channel. Along with her intellectual skills, she is endowed with a great potential in sports as well. She has procured her place as a volleyball player on national level. She has been acclaimed with numerous awards and certificates. Ma'am always remained very passionate towards her work and she likes to explore beyond boundaries while traveling. Her areas of interest are reading and listening instrumental music. Today we are very fortunate to have ma'am among us. I request Kamaljeet ma'am to address us. Ma'am, please.
Namaskar to everyone present in the beautiful session. Congratulations, Dr. Vin Saraswat, for such a wonderful insight in the literary work, in your thoughtful discourse today. I was lost in the literary world for some time. The kind of examples that you were citing, I was recollecting that how these things or these examples that we have read, but at times we might be forgetting and we may not be applying these kind of hopeful ideas or that hope that we should be having. Because we all understand that in literature, hope is often working as a catalyst. And that initiates the plot because from there starts the actual story. That this is what actually happened. That gives hope. That builds up optimism. And of course, the hope for a better future often drives the protagonist into some kind of action, and that action naturally at times is considered as impossible by an ordinary person. But at the same time, an ordinary person becomes extraordinary, and at times, when you have already given an example of Dasrath Maji, that how an ordinary person becomes an extraordinary. So it's not that someone is born extraordinary, it's the hope that makes a person from ordinary to extraordinary. That actually is something very important. And of course, hope is one of the most important traits for literature or literary character to have. And that's what is the actually reason that we read a book or an author or a writer or a poet writes something. A playwright also builds up the story, the plot around the catalyst, and the catalyst, of course, we understand main. At the same time, I understand that it's the possession of hope that separates the hero from the villain. We all see movies, we all read so much of literature every time, be it the classic literature, be it the Indian literature, be it the European literature or the American literature. Mahabharata is something that is full of positive, positive, positive aspects. There, of course, and that's how we are able to find out and see that yes, this is something that is considered as villain, this is something that is considered as hero or heroine. So it's the hope that actually is putting the person or making someone a hero or a villain, and that is day-to-day life how much it is important. And of course, Dr. Govind Saraswat, when he was saying, quoting example of Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and several other examples talking about non-violence. Yes, certainly non-violence is not a weapon of a weak person. It is a strength of a strong person. It's not easy. It's not simple. When you teach something, you have to practice also. Like if I quote here what my father said, that wearing khadi is not everybody's cup of tea. It is to maintain it is the most difficult task. And at a young age, I might not have realized, but then let me let me express it here since I've got the platform. When I wear a cotton sari, I understand that what my father meant. You need to have it in a proper, and it is not that easy. It is not that simple. It adds to your grace when you are able to put it in the right way or when it is really maintained nicely. Here, as far as hope is concerned, I'm a person one who, as Vinka ma'am also put it shared, that I like reading. Yes, certainly reading gives me great hope. Even at times in the middle of night, when I'm feeling a bit disturbed due to certain things, or when I'm not feeling like sleeping, I don't have to turn myself in the bed. Quickly, I get up, switch on the light, and I keep always a book by my side. And my brain tells me anything that you can say, it gives me that instead of lying in the bed, futile struggle with sleep and not sleep, rather than that, become a book, you will get something better, and that will make you what you are. And that's really has helped. So again, the point is that hope is something that gives us lot to live and lead a meaningful life. As since we're talking about literature, so that will of from Caesar, Mark Antony, I hope you all understand, gives great hope to the people. Of course, Conspirators knew that what he is going to say only after their permission and by their permission. But at the same time, Mark Antony turned the tables absolutely what the conspirators were thinking, that it's so easy to make people of Rome to get swayed in their own and prove Julius Caesar as a traitor or as one who was greedy for crown. Here, Mark Antony gives hope to the people, and that's how we see that what happens that the villain turns out to be the hero. That means that Julius Caesar becomes a hero for the people once again. Then, of course, the beautiful poem that you have already quoted, Dr. Saraswat, in which you said, The Last Ride Together by Robert Browning. While I was reading, and often I remember that, yes, at times, maybe that moment become a frozen moment, or you might carry that moment for your rest of your life. You never know that which moment of your life becomes memorable, which moment of your life becomes a praising moment for you. So it is again that hope that builds a person who a person is. And of course, again, another example that we find the last leaf. The last leaf by O. Henry, a beautiful story. That how even a painted leaf turns out to give life to a girl who is on the verge of death. Just, I think, few mini mini meters or mini kind of hours of her life she's about to plunge into the darkness of death. But when she finds that the leaf is there, how she gets that no, I will not die. So there are innumerable examples, of course, that we all read, and that is why history, not only history but literature, of course, has always given us greater hope. At the same time, when you read the books written by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, every time we feel that there is so much of hope, he does not talk anything about what is impossible. He just talks and talks about what is possible. So again, great example of, if not of literature like Shakespeare or some Oscar Wilde, but certainly what he has written, what he talks, what he really put into words. It's beautiful, great hope. Hats off to him that how beautifully he inspired people and how big hopes he had given and how he encouraged and ignited. With his hope, he ignited the young generation of this nation. And of course, I'm reminded here when I was teaching long back, I think 25 years back, there was one this chapter, Hiroshima, that talks about naturally the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. At the same time, the story writer writes a beautiful line, and that line says, the people, those who appreciated the present had nothing to do with all this war or nothing. Same people were punished. But at the same time, after so much of destruction, after so much of aftermath of Hiroshima, people of Japan, people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki came out of their defeat, and of course they give beautiful example, or and they became a wonderful example of hope. So there are innumerable kind of examples that we find in literature. Similarly, there is this story of Muhammad Ali as well. Muhammad Ali, who struggled, and for him to win a medal in the Rome Olympics was a dream come true. The dream was that now onwards will be treated and equal amongst the unequals. He will no more be considered a dark or a black, but he will be or a negro. But at the same time, and he says that ever since I wore that medal, I found that yes, things have changed. And till I reached my home, I found that things have really changed. The people who were standing, same people who mocked at me, same people who never liked me, were the ones, those who were greeting me because I was the gold medalist. After a few days, he finds that his hope shatters and he frees himself. He frees himself by throwing his metal into the Ohio River. And he feels that I had a great sense of relief that after throwing the metal, I was now a different person. And that's how he struggled. He gave hope to his people. And of course, there are innumerable examples where we find that people have in literature or through literature have given great hopes to humanity. And that that's how we become what we are or who we are. Because human beings really get very easily disheartened or rejected or hopeless. But at the same time, there are more number of people, perhaps those who are hopeful, those who are positive, those who do not see the side of impossible, but they see the words or the spellings, or they break the word into possible and possible. So that's the beauty of literature. That is literature like. So, uh, without taking much of the time, I would certainly like to thank each one of you for being such a wonderful listener as well as Dr. Saraswat, spellbound to hear your sublime way of putting the things in such a wonderful manner with so much of zeal, with so much of trust, and the kind of research or the kind of vocabulary that you were using was really so easy to understand everything in such a nice way. So it's a pleasure for me to be a part of this course today. Although I was asking Hasina ma'am to excuse me in the middle of that, but I could not resist myself, and of course, I would certainly be happy to be a part of it. It's such a memorable time that each one of you has given me, and I thank from the core of my heart to each participant that this is really something that we should encourage, we should reach to more number of people, we should talk to our colleagues about such kind of platforms. We should, yeah, bring such young persons or the speakers, not only the speakers, but who can understand that yes, good talks, good literature, good discourses, good discussion, good platforms are available to share, to put, to exhibit their talent in such a wonderful. So this is what I think. And yes, let's be more hopeful. Let's continue with the hope and be, of course, literary people. I might not consider myself a literary person, but at the same time, yes, I'm fond of reading, and there are innumerable examples that each one of us must be having that we have read and we have believed that hope has always given us a new lease of life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We were listening spellbounded, and your words really added the value to the session. The way you have analyzed is truly motivating and thought provoking. Beautifully, you explained the illustrations of Last Leaf, Julius Caesar, and a lot more. Hope is a powerful concept. It inspires us to do the impossible and helps us carry on during difficult times. I would like to quote lines by Thomas Edison: our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. With some more lines, I would like to sum up quickly, which is from Harivansh Rai Bachchan's famous poem, which I always like. लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती. नन्ही चींटी जब दाना लेकर चलती है, चढ़ती दीवारों पर 100 बार फिसलती है. मन का विश्वास रंगों में साहस भरता है, चढ़कर गिरना, गिरकर चढ़ना ना अखरता है. आखिर उसकी मेहनत बेकार नहीं जाती, कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं. So, thank you, respected Govind sir, respected Kamaljeet ma'am, for your gracious presence today. You spared your valuable time from your busy schedules and imparted us the enlightening guidance and shared very motivating speeches and lectures. Thank you, all the leaders and members of iSPELL Forum, and thanks a ton to our founder and General Secretary, Professor Ghansham sir, Professor President, Professor Anupma Vora ma'am, Patron, Professor Raju Bhargav ma'am, our convener, Professor Shalini Yadav ma'am, our event coordinator, Hasina Kabir ma'am, for their untiring efforts and without whom this event would not have been successful. And thank you for providing me opportunity to moderate the session on this platform. Now I request Shalini ma'am for the certificate part, please. Ma'am. Uh, Shalini ma'am.
Shalini ma'am, are you there? I'll
Yes, yes, I'm there. I'll just share the screen.
Yeah.
Ma'am, any issues with the, Shalini ma'am?
Is there any issues?
I can share or ma'am Biplav
Yeah,
can share?
I
Let
think
us know.
yeah, share.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Okay. So, this certificate goes to Dr. Govind Saraswat sir. Sir, you deliberated the session in a very good way, and it was very inspiring and motivational session. We would like to have more such kind of sessions in future with collaboration of colleges also. This certificate goes to Miss Kamaljeet Yadav, ma'am. Ma'am, you wonderfully chaired the session and so patiently you listened it all, and in a such a way, in a such a good way and motivational way, you inspired all of us. And I even got some candidates messages for having you as a speaker in future also. So please revert them back.
That's great.
The certificate goes to beautiful Dr. Vimala Mathur for moderating the session in such a good way and in a beautiful way with her beautiful voice and beautiful face.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hasina, this goes to my dear friend for contribution as coordinator. You have always stood behind me and with me in all the odds and all the activities till now. So the certificate goes to you as the coordinator of the event. You have successfully coordinated it. I would like to thank each and everybody present here and express my gratitude for your gracious presence. I think now the session is over. We can end it. Hasina ma'am, do you want to say anything else?
I think we always say that we want to say few words, but it's not few. But I would really love to wind it up few. I mean, it was such a wonderful session, undoubtedly. I could read the messages. I mean, even Dr. Govind Saraswat sir, along with Kamaljeet ma'am, it was a wonderful pairing. And I mean, the way they have delivered, the way they have, extended the entire session was really wonderful. So, first of all, I would like to thank both of you. And without delaying, though ma'am was having some very much emergency, and even then, just because of my request, ma'am is there. So it is so nice of ma'am. So I just, the topic, today's topic was hope, and I could recall the movie. Maybe a few of you might have watched it, Castaway. It's a very beautiful, book, and then it was being elaborated, transformed into a movie. Tom Hanks' Castaway. There is a beautiful quote there that I have got to keep breathing because tomorrow the sun will rise, and who knows what the tide could bring. It's such a motivation. The entire movie alone, Tom Hanks, he all alone in an island, and how he survives just because of this term hope. So this is I would relate it with. Though there are lot many things that I would love to say, but we are running short with time. It has been already extended. So I would simply love to thank everyone, the entire team, because any event is nothing without the super team working. So, for the past few days, me, Vipula, and Shalini ma'am, we were having video conference calls and then connected calls and messages. So it was the effort, just as sir said, that what is important is the effort, not the result. But here, both the things are. We have
Yes,
achieved both things.
they
So
are
that
achieved both.
attended it. So that is such a nice inspiration for all of us. So he just kept on texting that yes, I know about though there are people and everything. So it itself is a motivation that there is someone who is there to motivate, encourage, and push all of us. Apart from that, I could see many members who have joined today. Indrani ma'am, then Bhupendra Saji, and a lot many more. A few from West Bengal Forum have also joined. So this is really nice to see that others from the other forums are also joining, and this is all a team effort. So once again, I would love to thank you all on behalf of iSPELL Rajasthan Forum, and that's all for today's event. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you so
day.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lola.